Hey guys, welcome to Daniel Gian Talk, and today we're reviewing the 2019 film Arjun Reddy. Let's be honest guys, I mean, what's the difference? I mean, it's pretty much the same fucking movie. If you've seen Arjun Reddy, you've seen Kabir Singh. But before I get started, I just want to address the elephant in the room. Or should I say the cat in the room? In this review, I will not be discussing all of the controversy surrounding the film. However, do not think that I'm not going to discuss it at all. As a matter of fact, before I get started, I want you guys to let me know what questions you want me to answer regarding all of the controversy about the film. Because Gian and I will be doing a special edition of our reaction hour where we go deep into this topic and we dedicate the entire episode to discussing different articles, different viewpoints, and our opinions on that subject matter. So once again, if you would like us to address your specific questions, please let us know in the comments below, and we will do so on our reaction hour, which will be coming out in a few days. But let's get right into the review. So as I already said, it's a remake of Arjun Reddy. And if you've seen that film, which I'm going to assume that most of you watching this video out there did not see the film, it's almost a shot-for-shot remake, but at the same time, it is uniquely its own movie. As a matter of fact, I have to admit, I prefer this version over the 2017 Telugu version. The film shares the same director, Sandeep Vanga. The film's lead in this version is Shahid Kapoor, and I have to say, hats off to Shahid. He steals the show. As a matter of fact, his performance elevated the movie to a whole nother level. Let me know in the comments if there are better performances by him. Because this is Sandeep's second attempt at telling the same story, I feel like there are definitely moments that have been more streamlined and condensed and adapted for the Hindi audience in a better way. And that's why I do prefer this version over the original Telugu version, because the pacing just felt more organic but yet fast. I felt like there were certain moments that were just stripped away from the original version. That's not to say that this film didn't have its issues, because a lot of the issues that I had with this film, I had with Arjun Reddy. As a matter of fact, if you want to hear my detailed analysis of the overall story, I actually implore you guys out there to check out the review that Gian and I did of Arjun Reddy, because the stories are pretty much the same. So a lot of the complaints I had with Kabir Singh, I also had with Arjun Reddy. Now, some of those complaints were addressed in this remake and were fixed. Some of them were not, and some things that I had no problems with in the original became problems in this remake. For example, the ending to this film. Spoilers, by the way, if you guys haven't seen the film, this is a spoiler review, so turn it off now. The ending of the film ends up with our two leads ending up back together again. The girlfriend, who turns into the wife, ends up having Kabir Singh's child, and the two basically live happily ever after. And now in the original version, the events unfold a little differently. After basically Arjun Reddy loses his job because he was doing coke and all these and drugs and everything, and the medical board found out that he was doing all these procedures while high and intoxicated, and they basically banned him for a few years. He went on a bender. And it wasn't until his grandmother died that everything kind of started to come back together and he was able to come back to Earth. Now in the original version, he sees his ex-girlfriend, for lack of a better word, in the park one day. And pretty much right after that, he goes to Italy. I believe he goes to Italy. I know he goes on a vacation, but I'm pretty sure it's Italy. And you kind of just see him reflecting and be kind of just sobering up, for lack of a better word. And then he comes back and he meets her in the park, and they have this very, in my opinion, beautiful and touching exchange with slapping and crying, but long takes as well. I mean, just the way it was covered was just, I don't know, it just spoke to me. You know, for all the shortcomings that Arjun Reddy had, the ending was really powerful to me. Now in this remake, you don't have that element of him going off to vacation and kind of sobering up. You still have the medical board scene and him, you know, the grandma dying, and there's never this moment where he sees Priti in the park and then from there he ends up going on vacation and then seeing her again. As a result, once we finally do get to the park, it kind of feels forced and not as organic as the original. So this is an example of something that was perfect, in my opinion, in the original version, and in the remake kind of fell flat. But there's something that was in the original version that I did not like, and then in this version, I felt like was different. And I'm gonna get more into detail with this with Gian in Reaction Hour, because I don't want to get into the social elements of this scene, but the scene that I'm about to talk to involves the attempted forced sex. It involves Arjun Reddy, or Kabir Singh, and a girl who appears to be cheating on her husband. Well, not yet technically, but they are engaging in a romance. They're about to have sex. I wouldn't say romance, but they're about to have sex. When she doesn't want to, a knife gets pulled out. And in the original version, Arjun Reddy is way more forceful and just completely lifeless in his face. It was a very creepy and weird and very rapey scene. No rape actually takes place in either version. I do need to say that. I need to be clear about that. But it was not a good scene where I felt like, oh, I can't wait to root for this guy. Like, it was very off-putting. However, thanks to Shahid Kapoor's phenomenal acting, that scene does have a different sort of vibe and feeling towards it. Now, you still get the knife pulled, you still feel uncomfortable when he's like, no, I want this now. But there's a moment, thanks to a music cue, because they built in this sound design, where you actually do see Shahid Kapoor realize what he just did and have a sense of, I don't want to say regret per se, but at least the way I interpreted it, he has this transformation where when he pulls the knife out, he is this monster. And then the music thing happens in the background and he kind of snaps back into reality and he's like, oh wait, oh shit. Like, what am I doing here? And then we cut away for comedic effect where he walks out of the door and he walks basically past the boyfriend or husband, and you know, then you have the music, and then he goes and puts ice in his pants, and that's like just like in Arjun Reddy. But that little subtle difference changed the whole outcome of the scene, in my opinion, because while it still had that same creepy vibe and it was uncomfortable, the fact that I did see Shahid Kapoor's emotional shift, it made me realize, and it also helped that I had seen Arjun Reddy, so I kind of knew where his character was in that moment in terms of the overall narrative, because at the beginning of the film, you're actually watching him at his worst. Like, after basically his girlfriend was forced to marry another man, and that's what really caused him to go on this huge, heavy binge of drinking and drugs and everything. So when you're watching this moment, he's fucked up. Now, in Arjun Reddy, he's fucked up, but because of his lifeless acting, I just felt creepy the whole time, and there was never a moment where I felt like Arjun was realizing, oh fuck, what am I doing? But again, Shahid Kapoor did have that moment. If you do take a step back and look at the overall narrative, that is a defining moment for his character where we kind of do shift a little bit. Again, Shahid Kapoor is phenomenal in this film. So I'm not saying I like that new scene, but I definitely do enjoy Shahid Kapoor's acting, because those little facial expressions really do add up to something. Just an overall flow of the story, I feel like, was better in this remake as opposed to the original. I feel like a lot of the fat was trimmed out. The movie's still extremely long, but the pace is just relentless. I mean, it's at no point does the film really slow down. I mean, towards the end, like literally towards the end does the film start to slow down, especially after the grandmother's death, where you actually get to, or leading up to the grandmother's death as well, where you actually do get to see Kabir Singh interact with his friends and his family and his brother. You know, they're fighting and things like that, but you actually do have scenes where they get to kind of slow down and communicate with one another. But up until that point, you don't get any of that. I mean, it's just bam, 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 bam. Another scene that I enjoyed in the remake that I did not care for in the original version was the scene that takes place during the Holi celebration. He doesn't want anyone to throw colors on her other than himself. He gets word that these hoodlums, who you find out that are actually the same people that were involved in the soccer match, football match, earlier in the movie, and they basically molest her. You know, they're grabbing all over her, and they do throw the colors on her, and he finds out and he gets pissed. Now in both versions, same, he gets pissed, he drives down there, and he beats the shit out of the guy, the main guy. Now in the original version, after he literally beats the shit out of the dude, and the dude like smokes a cigarette and tells him to fuck off and all this shit, Arjun Reddy starts to break down and cry. And I thought it was such a weak moment. This guy is such a strong man and everything, and he just starts crying for no reason. It just didn't make any sense. In this remake, there's no crying. He still beats the shit out of the dude. He still tells him to fuck off and basically like, if you fuck with her again, I'll kill you type thing. And he does hug her and he embraces her in that moment, but there's no crying, there's no weirdness to it. It didn't feel like he was weakened in any way. And you know, I did enjoy that because it felt more realistic. And overall, I felt like this film was more realistic and just in its approach to everything, in my opinion. When Shahid Kapoor actually puts his hands on Priti and he slaps her, it's a huge pivotal moment. And the same thing happens in Arjun Reddy, but you don't really feel the same way. At least I didn't. But in this version, when he slaps her, after, I don't know, 90 plus minutes of this weird romance, I felt that slap. It was impactful because you could see how fucking lost Shahid was in that moment. Or I should say Kabir was in that moment, thanks to Shahid's acting. And when he slaps her, you knew that there was going to be consequences. And in the original version, it didn't feel like that, but it felt like such a pivotal moment thanks to his girlfriend's reaction and the way she reacted to it, you know. Up until that point, he never laid one single finger on her in that way. Yes, they had sex. Yes, they hung out, they lived together, did all these things, but at no point did he ever physically harm her in any way. And so when he basically puts that ultimatum on her and he slaps the shit out of her, that's a scene in which ultimately leads to Kabir Singh's downfall. And I actually felt it in this version, whereas in Arjun Reddy, I did not. So again, these little moments, thanks to the acting, ultimately end up turning the film into a different type of movie. And ultimately, a movie that I feel like if you've never seen Arjun Reddy, I can see why you would enjoy this one. I really do. And I say that to say, when I watched this film, this is the first Hindi film, actually this is the first Indian film period where it was a genuine sellout in the theater. Now when Gian and I went and watched Sanju, it was a packed house, but it wasn't full. There were 0 seats in the theater, and it was a 200 plus person theater. And it was very interesting because of all movies, I never expected it to be this one. And the other element, the audience was majority female, of all ages too. I mean, you had older women there, you had what I would assume is like young adults, teenagers, maybe people around my age. I mean, I sat next to a couple, and at no point was there anything other than laughter and cheering and things like that. You know, as I was watching this movie, I loved watching it with Indians. And I say that because there were certain things that I just didn't find funny, but the audience did. So it kind of put me in this state of mind where I'm like, oh, there's other jokes going on here that I'm just not getting. You know, when I watch a movie at home, things do go over my head. Now, and that's not to say I don't understand the story. That doesn't, because I know some people are going to hear me say that and they're immediately going to be like, told you, Daniel, you don't understand shit. And I like to think that it's a language thing. I think that some of the dialogue was probably written in Hindi very specifically for Hindi speakers, obviously. So there's probably some sort of translation thing that where, you know, if you have to summarize a sentence that might be specifically written in Hindi and it's funny or it's written in a certain way, like obviously it might not translate one-to-one. And obviously there's cultural things and things like that that I might miss as well. But honestly, a good experience to watch it with the full house. I'm not really getting too much into the plot, if you noticed, and partly because I do want to save some of my specific thoughts for the reaction hour, but mostly because, as I already mentioned, the story is pretty similar to Arjun Reddy. And you could watch my Arjun Reddy review and just substitute Arjun Reddy for Kabir Singh, and my opinions are fairly similar. I mean, there's moments in this film that I really love that are exactly the same that I loved in the original one. I mean, there's the moment that right before the intermission where the camera does this push in and then it turns upside down as Kabir Singh is having an overdose. And, you know, literally it's like this visual language of Kabir Singh's world is literally turning upside down. His shit is completely upside down. He's gone. He went off the rails. And, you know, that's still there. And I enjoyed that. And like I said, acting phenomenal. And this is my preferred version. I would watch this movie over Arjun Reddy every single time. If I had to put a rating on this one, I'd say it was about a solid 7. It was a little bit long. I still believe that this movie could lose about 30 minutes at least and be a super solid film, and my rating would be even higher. And I actually think if it were cut shorter that even more people would enjoy this movie, because it would just be this fast, lightning paced character study, because that's essentially what this film is. It is a character study. I'm sure people like this exist. But let me know in the comments what you guys think. I mean, how many of you guys actually went out and saw it this last weekend or plan to see it in the future? And for those who did see it, what did you think? Do you think it's a good film, a bad film? Did you see Arjun Reddy? Is it similar? Do you prefer Arjun Reddy? If you haven't seen it, let me know in the comments why. Is it because of the controversy? Did you just not have any interest in it? I'd like to know why. I do have one final thing to say about this whole situation. If you have complaints about this film, but you haven't seen the film yet, I really don't understand how you can do that. You have to see something in order to form your own opinion. For example, when the Twilight series came out, maybe it was big in India, I don't know, I'm gonna assume it was. But when the Twilight series came out and all the vampire movie blah 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 things were coming out, and it was such an easy target to shit on. Twilight sucks, and I just remember here in the States that everyone would just shit on Twilight, and that was the movie to shit on. I could have easily been that person to just jump right on and shit on the movie because everyone else was, but I went out and watched every single one of those films. And I can tell you that yes, those people were right, the films suck, but I can tell you why they suck. And the people who say things suck but never saw the film to say it sucks, you can't actually have a conversation with them because they don't really know what they're talking about. They don't really have their own opinions. And I find that in today's day and age with retweeting and social media and everything like that, it's very easy to just subscribe to someone else's opinion. And I would just ask for those who are criticizing this film or anything like that, or for not just this film but any film, to take the time and watch what the controversy is about, because maybe you might find that it's not that big of a deal, or maybe you might find that the people who are criticizing it aren't criticizing it enough. You know, maybe they're missing different angles and intricacies. You know, maybe there's something more, and maybe you taking the time to go watch that can bring that other voice to the conversation. But if people continue to just be on this team and you continue to just fight each other but not really have a true opinion on things, that doesn't help anything, because all it does is continue to fight back and forth. And I just really think it's important to be informed and to have your own unique, distinct opinion. Now, if you watch the movie and you 100% agree with what some article wrote, at least you know that what they're saying is fact. Because, well, I don't want to get into it. I want to get into it on Reaction Hour because I said I wasn't going to talk about it, but I really just wanted, because right now what I just said has no bias one way or the other. I just really do enjoy conversations with people. I mean, I tried to have conversations with people on Twitter, but as soon as I asked if they saw the movie, they stopped talking, they stopped responding. And so it's like a dead giveaway that they didn't see it. And so for me, if you don't see something, it's hard for me to converse with you, because that just means that I'm talking with somebody who is regurgitating someone else's opinion. But with that, guys, once again, ask me questions in the comments below about this film and about the controversy if you so choose to, and I will address it with Gian in this week's Reaction Hour. Thanks for watching. I hope it was informative. I'm sorry if you wanted me to go deeper into the film itself, but like I said, I feel like I've already reviewed this film, like, because honestly, the best thing about this new version is Shahid Kapoor, and I've talked the most about him. But thanks guys for watching. I really appreciate it, and I hope to see you on the next one. Peace.